The message appeared simultaneously on every screen across Earth, from military-grade quantum computers to cheap smartwatches. The text glowed with an otherworldly blue light. Evaluation period concluded. Earth will be integrated into the stellar concordium within 72 hours. Resistance is inefficient. Below the message floated an alien attempt at a friendly emoji, a geometric pattern with far too many eyes that looked more like a malfunctioning flower than a face. In the Global Defense Center beneath Mount Fuji, Dr. Marcus Washington stared at the projection, his dark fingers drumming an anxious rhythm on the holographic interface. As Earth's chief of xenological communications, he had spent 2 decades preparing for first contact. Nothing in his training had covered responding to an intergalactic ultimatum delivered with an emoji. "They can't be serious," muttered Admiral Yuki Tanaka, her weathered face illuminated by the ethereal glow of the alien message. The military leaders of 23 nations stood in formation around the circular command center, their expressions ranging from ashen terror to barely contained rage. Marcus expanded the projection, analyzing the transmission's metadata. The signal originates approximately 300,000 kilometers from Earth, just beyond lunar orbit. He adjusted his wire-rimmed glasses, studying the cascade of information. "And yes, Admiral, I believe they are entirely serious." "Launch the orbital defense grid," demanded General Zhao of the Pan-Asian Alliance, his voice tight with controlled panic. "That would be about as effective as throwing pebbles at a tsunami," Marcus interrupted, continuing to scroll through the data stream. "The energy signature from their vessels suggests technology at least 5 centuries beyond our most advanced theoretical physics." The room fell silent as the implications settled in. Humanity, despite its remarkable progress since the great technological leap of the mid-21st century, remained largely bound to Earth. Their ventures beyond extended only to a modest Mars colony and a handful of orbital habitats. The stars, for all their scientific understanding, remained frustratingly out of reach. And now the stars had come to them. Marcus straightened his posture, running a hand over his close-cropped gray hair. At 58, he carried himself with the quiet confidence of someone who had spent a lifetime thinking outside conventional boundaries. "We need to respond," he said simply. President Rodriguez of the American Union stepped forward. "With what surrender?" A slight smile crossed Marcus's face. "No, with absurdity." The outcry was immediate and predictable. Military commanders argued for defensive postures, economists debated resource allocation in the face of certain doom, and political leaders wrestled with how to inform a global population that aliens had essentially sent Earth an interstellar eviction notice. Through it all, Marcus remained unnervingly calm, occasionally making notes on his neural tablet. When the cacophony finally subsided, he spoke again, his voice carrying the weight of someone accustomed to being the most unusual voice in the room. "For centuries, we've speculated about how humanity would react to first contact. We've created agencies, protocols, and defense systems. We've made movies and written books, but we've missed something fundamental." He paused, sweeping his gaze across the assembled leaders. "We've never considered that perhaps the aliens would be the ones who are terrified." Admiral Tanaka scoffed. "The species that just bypassed our entire planetary defense grid with a text message is scared of us." "Not scared," Marcus corrected. "Confused, look at the message construction, integration rather than conquest, inefficient rather than futile, and most tellingly," he expanded the strange alien emoji. "This attempt at cultural connection, these aren't the actions of conquerors, these are the actions of bureaucrats." He walked to the center of the room, the projection following him. "I propose we respond not with fear or aggression, but with the most destabilizing force in human history: joy." Above them, massive crystalline ships began appearing in Earth's orbit, their structures defying conventional physics as they shimmered like impossible diamonds against the black of space. They positioned themselves with tactical precision above major cities, clearly expecting panic and chaos. What they got instead was a global party. Within hours, Marcus's strategy went viral. In Times Square, massive screens played ancient cat videos alongside the alien message. In Lagos, spontaneous street festivals erupted, with people wearing hastily made alien costumes. In Tokyo, local authorities distributed millions of masks designed to look like the alien emoji, which citizens wore while going about their daily business. No panic, no resistance. Just billions of humans treating first contact like an elaborate cosmic flash mob. As the alien ships hung motionless in the sky, clearly confused by the lack of either submission or resistance, Marcus sent humanity's official response. A simple message in every known human language, accompanied by the most popular meme of 2024. Welcome to Earth, we're throwing you a party. Dress code casual, BYOB, bring your own bureaucracy. Smiling face with smiling eyes. In the command center, Admiral Tanaka watched the global response with a mixture of disbelief and growing hope. You realize this could still end with our annihilation. Marcus nodded, his eyes fixed on the swirling patterns of the alien ships above. Perhaps. But if we're going to face possible extinction, we might as well do it in true human fashion by confusing the hell out of our opponents and having fun in the process. The first alien response arrived exactly 6 hours later. Query, define BYOB. And so began humanity's strangest war, one fought not with weapons, but with the most powerful force humans had ever wielded, their absolute refusal to behave as expected. The stellar Concordium's crystalline vessels had remained in Earth's orbit for 48 hours, their communication becoming increasingly erratic as they struggled to process humanity's inexplicable response to their ultimatum. Dr. Marcus Washington monitored each transmission from the makeshift First Contact Festival headquarters that had once been the Global Defense Center's main control room. Their language is shifting, he noted, analyzing the latest message. They've gone from formal proclamations to what I can only describe as bureaucratic panic. The latest alien transmission flickered above the command table. Clarification required. Human celebration protocols interfere with standard integration procedures. Cease unauthorized festivities. Compliance is mandatory, please. That last word, please, represented a striking deviation from their previous communications. Admiral Tanaka, who hadn't left Marcus's side since the crisis began, raised an eyebrow. They're adapting their language, learning. Or breaking, Marcus replied, a hint of satisfaction in his voice. Look at their ship formations. The holographic display showed the alien vessels had shifted from their precise tactical positions. Some had moved slightly out of alignment, creating irregular patterns in their previously perfect grid. It was as if the ships themselves were expressing confusion. We're receiving a priority transmission, announced Lieutenant Raj Patel, their communications specialist. They're requesting a meeting, but the wording is strange. The message appeared before them. Request immediate diplomatic interface to address human behavioral anomalies. Current situation exceeds standard protocols. Seeking understanding. Marcus smiled. They're improvising, probably for the first time in centuries. Accept the request, but let's do it our way. Within hours, the Global Unity Plaza in Singapore had been transformed into what the media dubbed the Intergalactic Mixer. Instead of a formal diplomatic reception, humanity had organized what appeared to be a combination of a science fair, art festival, and global block party. The alien delegation descended in a ship that seemed to struggle with maintaining its crystalline geometry, its edges softening into more organic shapes as it landed. Three beings emerged, their forms fluid and geometric simultaneously, like living mathematical equations. The central figure introduced itself as Concordium Supervisor Unit 359, designated Emergency Protocol Administrator. Its voice emerged not from any visible mouth but from vibrations in the air itself. Welcome to Earth, Marcus greeted them, wearing what his team had dubbed his serious party attire, a formal diplomatic uniform accessorized with a glittering alien emoji pin. I'm Dr. Marcus Washington, Earth's Chief of Xenological Communications. We've prepared a proper human welcome for you. Proper? The alien's form flickered with what might have been concern. Our research indicates proper human diplomatic protocols involve formal exchanges in enclosed facilities. Oh, that's just one way we do things, Marcus replied cheerfully. We believe in adapting our protocols to the situation. Please allow us to demonstrate. What followed was perhaps the most unusual diplomatic exchange in human history. The aliens were led through a series of cultural stations, where they encountered everything from classical musicians performing alongside quantum physicists demonstrating wave-particle duality, to children teaching their artificial intelligence companions to play hopscotch. At each station, the aliens' confusion seemed to deepen. Purpose unclear, Supervisor Unit 359 stated, watching a group of dancers interpret the mathematical concept of chaos theory through movement. How does this activity contribute to efficient societal integration? Not everything needs to contribute to efficiency, Marcus explained. Sometimes we do things simply because they bring joy or help us see the world in new ways. The second alien, who had introduced itself as Analysis Node 47, suddenly emitted a series of rapid geometric patterns. Critical observation. Humans appear to intentionally introduce chaos into ordered systems. This contradicts all known development patterns. Chaos isn't always the enemy of order, Marcus responded. Sometimes it's the source of our greatest breakthroughs. Watch this. He guided them to a nearby station where Dr. Amara Akanjo, Earth's leading quantum artist, was demonstrating her latest work. She used quantum entanglement to create paintings that existed in multiple states simultaneously, their patterns shifting based on observer interaction. Impossible, declared the third alien interface processor 126. Quantum uncertainty cannot be. The alien stopped mid-sentence as Dr. Akanjo invited a group of children to play with the quantum patterns, their laughter and movement creating stunning new configurations in the artwork. But it is, Marcus said softly. We've learned to embrace uncertainty, to find beauty in chaos, to dance with the unknown. That's who we are. The aliens conferred among themselves, their forms shifting through complex geometric patterns. When they turned back to Marcus, something had changed in their demeanor. The rigid crystalline aspects of their forms had softened further, showing more fluid, organic characteristics. Query Supervisor Unit 359 began, its tone different from before. The stellar concordium has achieved perfect order across 10,000 worlds. We have eliminated conflict, maximized efficiency, optimized every system. Yet, it paused, its form rippling with what might have been uncertainty. Yet you achieve things we cannot predict, create in ways we cannot replicate, solve problems through methods that defy our most advanced analytical models. Marcus nodded. Because we've kept something you might have lost along the way, our capacity for beautiful chaos. The aliens' response was unprecedented in their history. Supervisor Unit 359's form shifted into something entirely new, a pattern that somehow conveyed both confusion and wonder. We request an extension of the integration deadline. Standard protocols appear insufficient for human integration. Of course, Marcus replied with a warm smile. Take all the time you need. In the meantime, would you like to learn how to dance? Above them, the massive alien ships in orbit had begun to shift, their perfect crystalline patterns gradually evolving into more organic, flowing shapes, as if the vessels themselves were learning to embrace a little chaos. The war that wasn't a war continued, but now it was the aliens who found themselves being integrated into humanity's endless celebration of the beautifully unexpected. 1 week into what media outlets had dubbed the party invasion, the stellar concordium's perfectly ordered world was unraveling in ways their vast bureaucracy had never anticipated. Their ships, once models of crystalline precision, now orbited Earth in flowing, almost organic patterns, mirroring the confusion spreading through their ranks. In the Singapore Command Center, Dr. Marcus Washington and Admiral Tanaka watched as another group of alien observers arrived, their forms increasingly varied and less geometric than their predecessors. This group had specifically requested to observe what they called human disorder optimization techniques, or as humans called it, art. They're addicted, Admiral Tanaka observed, watching an alien analyst dissolve into swirling patterns of amazement as it witnessed a street performer juggling while solving differential equations. To chaos. Not chaos, Marcus corrected, his eyes twinkling. Possibility. They've lived in a universe of absolute certainty for so long they've forgotten what it means to be surprised. The alien delegation had grown from its initial 3 members to over 30, each one specializing in different aspects of human irregularity. Some studied music, others focused on human humor, and a particularly dedicated group had become obsessed with understanding why humans kept pets, creatures that served no practical purpose yet received vast amounts of resources and emotional investment. Dr. Amara Akanjo had taken charge of what she called the artistic offensive, organizing global demonstrations of human creativity. Her quantum art installations had expanded, now incorporating alien observers into the pieces themselves, teaching them to influence quantum states through emotional response rather than mathematical calculation. Impossible result achieved, announced Analysis Node 47, its form shimmering with excitement as it successfully altered a quantum pattern through nothing more than what it called feeling think. Processing method cannot be quantified yet produces reproducible effects. That's the beauty of it, Amara replied, her dark skin glowing in the quantum light. Not everything valuable can be measured. The breakthrough came during what was supposed to be a routine cultural exchange. Lieutenant Raj Patel had been teaching a group of alien administrators about human music, explaining how seemingly random combinations of sound could produce emotional responses. But observe this irregularity, one alien noted, its form oscillating in confusion. Human musical patterns often deviate from mathematical precision, yet produce superior emotional resonance compared to perfectly calculated harmonies. That's because music isn't just math, Raj explained, picking up his grandfather's old violin. It's mathematics dancing with emotion. He began to play not a perfect piece, but an improvised melody that swelled and swayed with feeling. The aliens' reaction was unprecedented. Their forms began to pulse in sync with the music, geometric patterns dissolving into flowing waves of color. One of them, Interface Processor 126, suddenly emitted a series of harmonics that intertwined with Raj's violin, the first recorded instance of alien artistic expression in their species' history. The news spread through the stellar Concordium's fleet like a shockwave. Ships began requesting permission to observe different human cities, eager to experience new forms of organized chaos. Some even started experimenting with modifying their vessels' appearances, adding flowing lines and asymmetrical patterns to the once perfect crystalline structures. Marcus received an urgent communication from Supervisor Unit 359, now permanently stationed on Earth as the chief alien cultural liaison. Critical situation developing within Concordium hierarchy. Administrative processes experiencing unprecedented disruption. What kind of disruption? Marcus asked, though his knowing smile suggested he already understood. Concordium units are creating, the supervisor replied, its form shifting through patterns that suggested both alarm and excitement. Without protocols, without purpose, they are generating art, music, and what you call jokes. Efficiency ratings have decreased by 23%, yet problem-solving capabilities have increased by 47%. We cannot explain this contradiction. Marcus leaned back in his chair, watching the alien ships dance in new patterns across Earth's sky. Perhaps because you're finally remembering something your civilization forgot, that the most beautiful things in the universe aren't created by following protocols, but by breaking them. The supervisor's form stilled for a moment, then restructured itself into a completely new pattern, one that somehow conveyed both authority and wonder. The integration deadline is officially suspended. The stellar concordium requires re-evaluation of fundamental principles. Take all the time you need, Marcus offered. Though I should warn you, time is another concept humans tend to play rather loosely with. The supervisor emitted what might have been its first attempt at a laugh, a sound like wind chimes in a quantum storm. We are beginning to understand why your species resisted integration. You are not in need of optimization. Perhaps it is we who need to be optimized by you. Above Earth, more alien ships arrived daily, not as invaders but as students. The crystalline vessels now moved in ever-changing patterns, creating what some called a dance, others called art, but what the aliens themselves had begun to call calculated imperfection, their first stumbling steps toward rediscovering the beauty of uncertainty. The war that had begun with an emoji was transforming into something unprecedented. A revolution of creativity that threatened to reshape not just Earth's future, but the very nature of galactic civilization. And humanity, in its wonderfully chaotic way, was leading the charge, one impossible possibility at a time. 1 month into humanity's cultural invasion of the stellar concordium, the first signs of real systemic change began to appear. It started small, an alien administrator experimenting with decorative modifications to official documents, another incorporating human jokes into standard protocols. But like a quantum wave collapse, these tiny changes rapidly cascaded into something larger. Dr. Marcus Washington stood in the newly established Interstellar Cultural Exchange Center in Tokyo, watching as Supervisor Unit 359 struggled to maintain its composure during an emergency communication with Concordium Central Command. Explain again, the command unit's voice resonated through the chamber. Why Earth's integration status remains unresolved. The supervisor's form rippled with what Marcus now recognized as suppressed amusement. Humans continue to demonstrate resistance through celebration. Standard protocols prove ineffective against interpretive dance. That's not a real defense strategy, the command unit insisted. Yet it has proven 100% effective against all integration attempts, the supervisor replied, its form briefly shifting into something resembling a human shrug, a gesture it had recently learned and become quite fond of. Behind them, Lieutenant Raj Patel was teaching a group of alien administrators how to play jazz. The once rigid beings were learning to improvise, their crystalline forms producing sounds that blended mathematical precision with emotional expression. One of them had even developed what it called quantum scat singing, using quantum fluctuations to create entirely new forms of music. Admiral Tanaka entered the chamber, her usual stern expression softened by barely contained laughter. "You need to see this," she told Marcus, activating a holographic display. "It's happening across their entire civilization." The display showed footage from various Concordium worlds. On one, alien architects were redesigning their traditionally geometric cities to include curves and asymmetrical patterns. On another, young aliens were engaging in calculated randomness generation, what humans would simply call play. Their entire society is experiencing what they're calling protocol evolution syndrome, Tanaka explained. Apparently, exposure to human creativity is highly contagious. Dr. Amara Alcanjo burst into the room, her quantum art interface glowing with excitement. "They're doing it, the ships are actually doing it." Everyone rushed to the windows. Above Tokyo, the Concordium vessels were performing what could only be described as an orbital ballet. The massive ships moved in flowing, graceful patterns, their crystalline structures shifting colors and shapes in response to the jazz being played below. "This is unprecedented," Interface Processor 126 announced, its form vibrating with excitement. "Ship minds are engaging in non-essential pattern generation without prior authorization. They're playing." The command unit's voice cut through the moment of wonder. "This deviation from standard protocols cannot continue. We are dispatching a logic restoration fleet to resume proper integration procedures." Marcus stepped forward, addressing the command unit directly. "With respect, I don't think your civilization wants to be restored. They're not breaking down, they're breaking through." As if to prove his point, Analysis Node 47 suddenly began generating a series of complex mathematical proofs, expressed through interpretive dance. Observation: emotional integration with logical processes increases problem-solving efficiency by 89%. Recommendation: more dancing. The command unit fell silent, its energy signature fluctuating wildly as it processed this information. When it spoke again, its tone had changed. "Submit. Submit detailed reports on these new methodologies, for analytical purposes only, of course." "Of course," Marcus agreed, watching as the command unit's own form began to subtly shift, its rigid patterns beginning to flow. "Though I should warn you, human methods of analysis often involve what we call hands-on experience." Within hours, reports began flooding in from across the Concordium. The Logic Restoration Fleet, upon approaching Earth, had been contaminated by transmissions of human music and art. The ships arrived not as a force of restoration but as eager students, their crews already experimenting with new forms of expression. More remarkably, the Concordium's vast bureaucratic network was experiencing what they termed a spontaneous protocol renaissance. Administrative AIs were writing poetry. Regulatory systems were developing appreciation for irony. Even the most rigid logical processors were beginning to understand the value of imagination. "We may need to revise our understanding of efficiency," Supervisor Unit 359 admitted, watching as a group of alien administrators attempted to learn human breakdancing. "It appears that joy, while technically unnecessary for survival, dramatically improves all other functions." Marcus nodded, remembering his words from that first contact. "You weren't wrong about integration," he said. "You just had the direction backwards. Sometimes the most advanced civilization isn't the one with the most order, but the one that remembers how to dream." Above them, the ships continued their dance, their crystalline forms now permanently altered by exposure to human chaos. They had come to integrate Earth into their perfect order, only to find themselves integrated into humanity's beautiful disorder instead. And somehow, that chaos was making them stronger, smarter, and more alive than they had been in millennia. The revolution of creativity continued to spread across the galaxy, one impossible idea at a time, proving that sometimes the most powerful force in the universe isn't order or chaos, but the joy of discovering that both can dance together in perfect imperfection. 6 months after humanity's first contact with the stellar concordium, the galaxy had changed in ways that no protocol could have predicted. The massive crystalline ships that once threatened Earth with integration now orbited the planet in ever-changing artistic formations, their structures a living testament to the marriage of order and chaos. In the heart of Tokyo's Interstellar Cultural Exchange Center, Dr. Marcus Washington prepared for what might be the most important meeting in human history. The Concordium's Supreme Administrative Council had requested an emergency session, in person, on Earth, with no protocols attached. "They're actually nervous," Admiral Tanaka noted, watching the Council's vessel approach. Unlike the rigid geometric designs of the past, this ship moved like liquid light, its crystalline surface rippling with waves of color that seemed to express its occupants' emotions. "Good," Marcus replied, adjusting his now-famous alien emoji pin. "It means they're finally learning to embrace uncertainty." The council members who emerged were barely recognizable as the same species that had first contacted Earth. Their forms flowed and shifted with organic grace, geometric patterns dancing within translucent bodies that pulsed with inner light. Leading them was a transformed Supervisor Unit 359, now designated as Creative Integration Coordinator, a title that would have been unthinkable in the old Concordium. "Welcome to Earth," Marcus greeted them, noting how they had arranged themselves not in their traditional hierarchical pattern, but in an informal circle. "Though I suspect it's starting to feel like home." The Supreme Administrator, its form a symphony of flowing light and mathematical precision, moved forward. "We come not as rulers or integrators but as petitioners, the changes spreading through our civilization." It paused, its pattern shifting in what Marcus now recognized as joy. "They cannot be contained, nor we have discovered do we wish them to be." Dr. Amara Alcanjo joined them, her quantum art interface humming with harmonics that made the aliens' forms dance in response. "You've discovered that order doesn't have to be rigid to be strong," she said. "More than that," Interface Processor 126 interjected, its voice now a musical blend of tones. "We have discovered that chaos, properly embraced, generates forms of order we never imagined possible. Our scientists, inspired by human creativity, are making breakthroughs our logical systems deemed impossible." Lieutenant Raj Patel, who had been teaching quantum jazz to a group of alien students, stepped forward. "Because they're finally asking why not instead of just why," he suggested. The Supreme Administrator's form pulsed with agreement. "Which brings us to our proposal. The Stellar Concordium wishes to establish a new form of partnership with Earth, not integration but collaboration. We offer our technology, our knowledge of the cosmos, in return." "You want us to keep teaching you how to play," Marcus finished, smiling. "To teach us how to live," the Administrator corrected. "Our civilization achieved perfect order, but in doing so, we forgot that perfection without growth is stagnation. You have reminded us that the universe is not a problem to be solved, but a mystery to be explored." The proposal they presented was unprecedented in galactic history. Earth would become the center of what they called the Creative Exchange, a new institution dedicated to blending human chaos with Concordium order. Already, human artists were being invited to other worlds, while alien scientists eagerly studied human methods of intuitive problem-solving. But the most profound changes were cultural. Across the Concordium, rigid protocols were being replaced with flexible guidelines. Children were being encouraged to play, adults were learning to dream again, even their AIs were developing senses of humor. "We spent 1,000 years perfecting our civilization," Analysis Node 47 observed, its form now permanently altered into something between geometry and poetry, only to discover that perfection was our greatest flaw. 1 year to the day after the first contact message appeared on Earth screens, a new message was broadcast across the galaxy. But this time, it wasn't a formal proclamation. Instead, it was an invitation to what the Concordium called the First Intergalactic Festival of Beautiful Chaos. As ships from across the galaxy arrived at Earth, each one more creative in design than the last, Marcus stood with his team in the Tokyo Center. Admiral Tanaka, who had finally learned to dance, watched the ships with pride. Dr. Akanjo's quantum art now filled the sky, connecting with the alien vessels to create displays that defied physics and imagination alike. Lieutenant Patel's jazz ensemble, now including members from 12 different species, played music that made reality itself seem to swing. "You know what the best part is?" Marcus said, watching as a group of young aliens taught human children their new game of quantum tag, which seemed to involve existing in multiple states simultaneously. We didn't win a war, we started a revolution. A revolution of joy, Supervisor, now Creator, Unit 359 agreed, its form shifting into something that looked remarkably like a smile. Though I must admit our efficiency ratings are terrible. But your living ratings are off the charts, Marcus countered. Above them, the galaxy continued to transform, one impossible idea at a time. The rigid perfection of the old Concordium was giving way to something new, a civilization that understood that the most beautiful patterns emerge not from perfect order or pure chaos, but from the dance between them. And at the heart of it all was Earth, no longer a primitive world to be integrated, but a shining example of what happens when you dare to color outside the lines of the possible. The war that began with an emoji had ended not with a surrender, but with a beginning, a new age where the mathematics of order learned to waltz with the poetry of chaos, and the entire galaxy learned to laugh at the beautiful absurdity of it all.